Okay, so let's get to it. Wealth isn't about what you earn, it's about the freedom to choose exactly how you spend your time.
So to get there, you need the mental framework. It's not just about a paycheck.
Today we're sharing 10 books that shifted our mindset from making money to designing a life.
So let's look at the quiet path to financial freedom.
Most people think that to be good with money, you just need to be good at math. But after years of just kind of understanding how people build their wealth and use it, we've realized that math is only about 20% of that equation.
So the other 80% of that equation is actually your behavior, your habits, and honestly, what you think money is used for. So if you only read one book on this list, make it be this one, The Psychology of Money.
Housel's main point is that doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave.
So we really like the chapter on man in the car paradox. We think that we want the Ferrari to show people that we're successful, but we actually don't look at the driver. They just imagine themselves in the car.
It's such a powerful lesson on quiet wealth. Being rich is what you see, the cars, the houses. Being wealthy is what you don't see, the assets, the freedom, and the choices. This book helps you stop performing and actually start building. Okay, the second book that we have on our list is Atomic Habits by James Clear. You might be wondering why a habit book is on the money list. But financial freedom is simply the compound interest of small daily decisions.
Exactly. And you don't just decide to become a millionaire. This is something that we've seen in our life. You design a system where you become the type of person that doesn't overspend and automatically invests. And you get to the point that you don't even realize you've done it.
Clear talks about identity-based habits. Instead of saying, I'm trying to save money, you say, I'm a person who prioritizes my future self. It changes your relationship with your bank account from a chore to an identity. In the world of finance, we're often told to just save more or be more disciplined, but James Clear explains why that almost always fails. It's because we're focusing on the goal rather than the system.
And it's the difference between saying, I'm gonna save $10,000 versus being somebody that I will not miss the opportunity to automate this investment. So it's definitely going to happen.
The takeaway from James is that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So try this. Try stop using willpower to avoid the impulse spending and start using environment design. The invisible system, move your savings apps off your home screen so that you don't look at the balance and feel rich enough to spend. And there's a friction rule too. Remove your saved credit card info from all those shopping sites so it's not as easy to just click, say you're on Amazon and click.
Yeah, that one-click purchase on Amazon is pretty tempting, I have to be honest.
Right, so that adding that 60 seconds of friction to find your wallet or to find your number to type it in actually gives your logical brain time to override that emotional brain.
Yeah, I think I've actually had that happen before where we didn't have the credit card saved and I had to go downstairs and get my wallet and I was like, I just won't do it. I guess you let your laziness kind of take over.
Yeah.
So it's basically just an audit of your financial environment.
And it really is. If your environment is set up for consumption, you're going to consume. If it's set up for production and saving, you're going to build wealth. It turns financial literacy from a stressful math problem into a series of small, effortless wins that compound over time.
And in the long run, these atomic 1% gains are actually what creates that quiet wealth that we're talking about.
Most finance books tell you how to manage your money once you have it. But this book, Essentialism, explains why you might not have as much as you'd like. It's about the disciplined pursuit of less but better.
So it's a massive mindset shift. In a world that tells you we need the latest tech, a bigger house, a subscription for just about everything now, it seems like every day there's more and more subscription opportunities. Essentialism asks, is this actually making my life better, or is it just making my life more crowded?
This is the heart of quiet wealth. He has a 90% rule that he talks about. If you're looking at a purchase or a time commitment and it isn't at least a 9 out of 10 in terms of value, the answer should be a 0.
So if you look at this from an analytical perspective, this is the ultimate leak plugger. And what I mean by that, most people's wealth leaks out to 1,000 yeses to things that you don't actually care about. When you become an essentialist, you stop the leaks. You stop buying things to impress people that you don't even like.
The takeaway here, it's not about deprivation, which we talked about before. It's actually the clarity that comes with this. By saying no to the non-essentials, you're saying a much bigger yes to your autonomy fund. And I think we try to share this a lot with our kids. And I think we also try to make a mental note of this, or we're trying to be better about this. It's is this going to add value to our life? Are these things that we're doing, whether it's Like, let's say you're going out to eat or you're buying something off of Amazon and it's just another purchase. Like, is it actually adding value to your life?
I think a lot of the kids' toys are a great example of that. That's kind of what we're using for them, is like, do you like having all these toys around the house? And sometimes they just clutter up a space, or the beloved Legos, they just seem to like spread everywhere and they're in every room and there's pieces everywhere. So, that's a good example. Okay, book number 4 is a person who's paralyzed by the perfect time to start, which honestly, I feel like we've all been paralyzed by that at certain points. It's called Just Keep Buying, and it's by Nick Maggiulli.
We love this book because Nick is a data scientist. He doesn't give options, he gives evidence. In the financial world, there's so much noise about buying the dip or waiting for a market to crash to get a deal.
And Nick basically takes a sledgehammer to all those ideas. He proves through 100 years of data that like when you buy it matters far less than the fact of just keep buying.
It's so liberating for that overthinker. His main rule is buy income producing assets as soon as you can and as often as you can. It takes the ego out of investing. You don't need to be a genius, you just need to be consistent.
He also has a really interesting take on spending. He suggests that if you're worried about your big purchase, use the 2 times rule. And at first, I don't think we knew, what this was talking about. But if you want to splurge on a $500 suit, you have to invest $500 in an income-producing asset at the same time. It turns guilt into a wealth-building event.
The takeaway here is that financial freedom isn't about outsmarting the market. It's about the mathematical inevitability of consistent accumulation. Save what you can and just keep buying. So book number 5 is Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin. And this book is a little bit of a reality check. It asks you to calculate your real hourly wage.
And once you subtract your taxes, your commuting, your work clothes, and the stress, depending on how long it takes you to recover from work, that $50 an hour job might actually be a $20 an hour job.
Then it asks, is this item really worth the life energy that I spent to buy it? When you realize that a new $1,000 phone costs you 50 hours of your life, you start to look at your purchases very differently. It's about trading life for money. And I feel like, again, like...
I'm like holding back a laugh because even before we read this book, this is something that I used to tell Amber all the time. Me being the one that had to work for like most of our relationship and making in the majority of the income, I always said that, like, hey Amber, is it worth... Like I would even go through and say that, like, is that worth 50 hours of my time, working at this job or your time, when you were working?
And anyone's time. And I think also then we're trying to share that with our kids, like what you buy equals actual time, and then you won't get that time back. And how do you want to spend your time, and is it really worth that? And
the crazy thing about this is, like, we don't know how much time we have left. We all just operate as if we have unlimited time, but we don't. And the time kind of comes for us all. So it's definitely something to keep in mind.
Right.
Okay, so this is book 6, Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. I've heard of this so many times. It's been like recommended to us so often. So we definitely thought we should have it on the list. This one's a little controversial in the financial world. Most books tell you to save as much as possible. Perkins argues that the goal should be to die with zero.
It's about utility. Money is only useful if it's converted into experiences or used to help others. Saving millions and dying at 90 with all of it still in the bank is actually a failure of optimization.
It teaches you to think about time buckets. There are things you can do in your 30s that you simply can't do in your 70s. Regardless of how much money you have, I think the way that I look at it is it's really based on what we've done. Like, we've decided to take time away from a 9-to-5 job. Hopefully we'll never have to go back. But we're spending the time that we are healthy, and we can go on hikes, we can do exploring, we can be athletic, do those things with the kids. Whereas, like, who really knows what you're gonna be like physically and mentally at 65? Who knows if you'll even make it to that point? So I think the way that I look at it is I'm choosing to spend the time with my kids now and invest that in their life and let them have those memories, and hopefully they're going to learn a ton from us and through homeschool, much more than they would if both of us were working all the time like most American families do. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. I guess what I'm saying is I think that's a lot more valuable than for us to work all the time, work until we're 65. You just never know. So we could do that, and then we could have the kids inherit like $3 million, but I think both of us agree that we'd rather do it this way. Okay, let's go on to book number 7. So this one's called The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. Now, this one is a classic, and it's also set in ancient Babylon time, so you might think it's outdated, but it actually still is like a timeless classic, and a lot of the principles that it talks about still apply to life today.
Yeah, so beyond the list of the 7 cures for a lean purse and the 5 laws of gold, the book emphasizes a few grounded truths. First, seeking wisdom over wealth. If you're given a choice between a bag of gold and a tablet of wisdom, take the wisdom. Without it, the gold is gone in a week.
And then another lesson is that opportunity knocks for the proactive. Good luck is often just the result of being prepared and taking action when opportunity arises. And I'm actually thinking back to an old boss that I swear he used to tell me this all the time, that a lot of people in his past looked at his success and they thought it was just lucky. And they used to call him that all the time. And he said, you know, they didn't see those days when you worked late at night and you spent those tireless hours preparing for maybe that presentation the next day. And people just thought it looked easy for you, but a lot of people, that when you see that and it looks like that, it's actually the result of a lot of hard work and dedication and preparation beforehand.
Yeah. The last one is debt as an enemy. This book treats debt as a heavy burden that must be systematically paid off using 20% of your income while you're still saving that 10% for yourself. This is the book's golden rule. If you remember nothing else, remember that you're not working for your boss or your creditors, you're working for your future self. Book 8 is Quit Like a Millionaire by Christy Shen. Christy's story is incredible. In her book, she challenges the traditional house and 401k path by showing how to build a $1 million portfolio and retire in your 30s through aggressive saving and strategic investment. It's a data-driven guide that proves financial independence is achievable for anyone, even those without a high salary or a trust fund, by prioritizing math over social expectations.
And there are 3 key points within the book to take away. Number 1, the power of the rule of 25. She emphasizes that you don't need infinite money to retire. You just need to reach your financial independence number. So let's talk about the rule of 25. One of the pieces of feedback that we get the most on this channel is that, we've got some people that come in and say, no matter what the financial independence number is, somebody will come in and say, well, I wouldn't be comfortable with $5 million, or I have $5 million and I'd never be comfortable with that. I'd never be able to retire. Or, it could probably be 20 million for certain people. So something to keep in mind is that in order to come up with that rule of 25, this FI number, you need to know what you're spending. You need to know what your cost of living is to get to that point. And like we've talked about in other videos, a lot of people just don't want to put the time in to look at what they're spending. They don't want to track that. They don't want to monitor it. They don't want to do a budget.
They don't want to sacrifice.
So like a lot of people they're not even going to take the time to figure out what their financial independence number is.
You almost have to be comfortable with that FI number. And you have to know, like, that is what you're going to stick to. And if you're not, then you need to find other ways to bring in the income and offset. Take some weight off of your investment so that they're not doing all the hard work.
And then rule number 2, building a yield shield. To protect against sequence of returns risk, she suggests that shifting some investments into assets that pay high dividends or interest. That's actually something that Amber and I have done over the last couple of years. So this shield allows you to live off the income generated by the portfolio without having to sell your shares when the market is down. So it essentially gives you a cushion from the volatility during that time. So for us on this yield shield, one of the things that Amber and I have found are things exactly for this. Like, if there was a stock market crash, where would we have our money? And we don't necessarily all just want to have all of it in bonds, not making much money for us. So we have found a list, actually a pretty good list of very reputable big name banks and utility companies and things like that have preferred stocks that they pay an average of 6.5%, which really isn't bad when you think about it, as a very low risk. So we do have a lot of assets set aside that if we do need to get our money to shift our money over to that, if the stock market goes down, we do have a pretty good plan. And I think it's a combination of things that have like a 4.5% return to 6.5% return, things like that. So you guys might want to have that ready and do some research and figure out how to build up your yield shield.
Another tool in the tool belt. Then the third key point to take away is that there's a cash cushion for stability. Beyond her yield shield that she talks about, the book advocates for keeping 2 to 3 years of living expenses in cash or low-risk liquid accounts. This serves as a psychological and a financial safety net. Their approach through this book moves away from the traditional common sense and relies on math-based strategies to build and protect your wealth.
The downside of doing this, yes, it does give you stability and safety, but it does also take away from the money that's really producing that income for you every year. So I feel like the more, if you have 2 to 3 years of living expenses that's invested in these low risk liquid accounts or cash, they're not producing the income for you that you need. So it's probably gonna end up taking you longer to achieve your FIRE number. But I do like this. I think that's another thing that a lot of people are afraid of with financial independence. I think it's like one of the top 2 things that people are afraid of. One is healthcare, one is a stock market crash. So if you do something like this, that will really take the stock market crash for the most part out of the equation completely.
As we move toward the end of our list, we have to talk about how you actually generate the income that fuels your investments. So that comes down to this book, Deep Work by Cal Newport.
And this isn't really a finance book in the traditional sense. It's about the modern economy. It's a wealth building manual. Newport argues that the ability to perform deep work uninterrupted, which I feel like is just so difficult these days, and like people's attention spans are like 5 seconds, even on social media, all the things that we watch and how quickly you have to send out your message or somebody's gonna just click away. So uninterrupted, intense focus on a cognitively demanding task is becoming increasingly rare.
And because it's becoming rare, it's becoming incredibly valuable. Most people spend their entire workday in the shallow work, that he calls it. Answering emails, checking Slack, or attending meetings that could have been in an email. It feels productive, but it doesn't move that needle on your net worth.
So he introduces a simple but brutal formula. High quality work produced equals time spent times intensity of focus. If your intensity of focus is at a 0 because you're constantly checking your phone every 6 minutes, your output is a 0. Guess what? No matter how many hours you sit at your desk, and if you guys think, I used to think about this at work all the time, but like how many interruptions you get from like an email, and it used to be an email, and now it's like, I don't know if you guys use Teams or what kind of chat thing, but everybody has some kind of chat or even texting. I suspect you guys use that. But that is just a constant interruption. It can be at any time, any second. And I think the expectation, honestly, by most bosses and most leadership teams is that you answer right away. But really, that is directly opposed to what this book is saying, and that is a distraction. I think it takes you like 20 minutes when you get distracted from something to regain where you were, to get back to where you were. It takes you about 20 minutes every time you get distracted.
Yeah. So here's something that you can do. And I know a lot of people talk about time blocking and really kind of setting that up and having those specific things throughout their day. So you can do where you have no phone or your phone's not accessible to you. You turn off your Wi-Fi, you turn off those notifications so that you don't hear them. And I know you do a really good job of this. And
I learned that on YouTube from a YouTube channel or video.
So that you're able to focus on that one big task that actually matters instead of getting interrupted by those dings or like thinking that you actually have to touch your phone.
And it is shocking. It's usually like 100 to 200 times
Yeah, and you wouldn't think that you're doing that. So it's the only way to escape the busyness trap. If you do that, where you actually set that up and start focusing on that.
Okay, so what's the takeaway? If you want to earn like the top 1%, you have to be able to do what the 99% can't. And that's staying focused despite all of the distractions. And we literally just had Sullivan come in here and distract us from recording this. So this is very relevant. But treat your attention like a finite currency. If you spend it on distractions, you won't have enough left to buy your freedom. And I really liked what Amber said too. Think about like every app that you have that you download, they automatically want to send you those push notifications. And then usually I can tell whenever Amber's been looking at something or bought something, because then all of a sudden we get added to these automated emails. And then some of these companies, like, I swear they send us 5 emails a day. And then I have to go through and unsubscribe to all these things and then change the settings on your phone so that you don't get the push notifications. Maybe there's a video I can find, and I'll share it in the comments below so that you guys can see how we kind of dealt with this.
And I think it's also setting up the boundaries for even people texting you, because I know you've done a really good job of that and saying like, okay, during this time, and I think that's just you're trained that way, but during this time, like if that person really needs you, they'll like call you. But if it's just a text, I think it usually can wait to be answered at a certain period of time where you're focusing on that and you're not focusing on actually figuring out the task that you're doing.
Okay, so our final book is The Ultimate Study on Quiet Wealth. It's the book that proves everything we see on social media about being rich is typically a lie. Book number 10 is The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley.
This is such a great book because it's based on decades of actual data. Stanley studied people with a net worth of over $1 million and found that they almost never lived that luxury lifestyle that we associate with wealth.
So most millionaires in America live in middle-class neighborhoods. They drive used cars and wear inexpensive watches, kind of like us. He calls them PAWs, prodigious accumulators of wealth.
And the people who look rich, he calls them UAWs, under accumulators of wealth. They have the high-income jobs, the German cars, and the designer suits, but their net worth is actually very low because they spend everything to maintain that image of success.
So the takeaway is a bit of a reality check. Wealth is more often the result of a lifestyle of hard work, perseverance, planning, and most of all, self-discipline. It's not about the big exit or being lucky in the stock market, or a lot of people have mentioned about like crypto. It's not about getting rich on crypto or getting rich quick at all. It's about the gap between what you earn and what you spend.
And it's a perfect book to end on because it reminds us that financial freedom is accessible to almost anyone who is willing to prioritize their autonomy fund over their social status, and anyone that's willing to sacrifice and give up and have the discipline to get there versus just looking the part. Like, you don't need to look a part.
Yeah. I feel like Amber and I'm thinking of a couple examples here. One is that Amber and I often see people, I guess it's like what the author was calling, what was it? The pause,
the UAWs.
The UAWs. Yeah, like we see a lot of those people, especially in the Charleston area, and we always wonder, like, how are they affording this? What kind of job do they have to have this fancy car? This looks like a nice house, fancy clothing. And then I always remind Amber that, like, their net worth is probably zero. Like, they are the ones that are living to, and I don't know this for sure, but like a lot of those people are probably living paycheck to paycheck. And then I say, you know, imagine if we just lived paycheck to paycheck and we had zero net worth. We could live like anybody that we'd want to see, at least for a while. And then that money would run out and we'd be really sad. But I just wanted to share that.
And to kind of add on that, you know, people, and social media is now the big thing, and Instagram, and putting your best on Instagram. And I think that we have to remind ourselves that what we see online is really like the tiny 1% or less of those people's lives. They're showing the best versions of themselves, the best of this, because that's what they want curated on that timeline. And it's never the messy stuff, or it's never the real thing. So we have to always remind ourselves, like, what we see is not really what's going on. And I think that also kind of goes with what you see in someone. Like, you don't need to covet what they have because they look like they have this really nice car, they live in this nice house, or they are able to go out to eat whenever. And I think it's just a reminder of, like, really what is their net worth, and then also what is their stress level, and what are, like, that's probably a whole different ballpark there.
There was another thing that we said earlier about this book, and being generally about the gap between what you earn and what you spend, and it's not about the big exit or getting lucky. It's amazing for me just to think back to, like, all the different people in our lives that, you know, we would ask over the years as we were doing this. We would say, hey, just curious, like, what is your budget? How much do you guys spend on X, Y, or Z? And it is shocking to me how many people we know that would say, I don't even know. I have no idea. I've never tracked my spending. I don't have a budget. And they like adamantly refuse to do that. So if you're not tracking your spending and you're not even looking at that side of the equation, how could you possibly do this? And they would only look at, you know, they would say, well, we don't have enough money, so we need more money. We need a raise, we need a bigger job, we need more income. And they never looked at that other side of the equation. And honestly, when I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube about budgeting and budgeting apps, they have very low views, which tells me that a lot of people still, they don't want to look at that. They don't want to look at their spending. They just want to look at that other side of the equation and always making more and more money, more raises, more promotions.
They don't want to look at the sacrifice that they're going to have to make in order to get there.
Yeah. So now that we've gone through all the books and tried to break those down for you as as high level as we can, we definitely invite you to go through and read everything. Pick out books that you like. Go to like Gemini or ChatGPT and at least get a high level overview, almost like a trailer of the book, and you can read the high level points and see if that's something you want to invest your time in. But at the end of the day, you know, financial literacy is not about being rich. It's about being free.
Yeah, so don't feel pressured to read them all. Start with one that resonated with you where you are right now. Is it your habits? Is it your investment strategy or your relationship with spending?
If you found this helpful, we'd love to hear about a book that's changed your life and change your perspective. Put that in the comments so you can share that with our growing community. And you know, we do our best to read and respond to everything that you guys have sent. We also want to just thank you for all the views and all of the support, all the encouragement, and we love hearing your stories, and we really want to help you guys out. So if you could share maybe just a high level of like where you are in your journey, some things that we can help you on, that would be great too.
Yeah, so thank you for spending your time with us today. And remember, if you want more content on financial freedom and the journey we are on, subscribe to our channel below and click the notification bell. And we'll see you in the next video.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Sally's in here. Smile.